Welcome everybody for joining us. Today is April 27th. It is the regular meeting of the Jamaica Selectboard. It is 7:01 p.m. First item of business is to call for any late additions to the agenda. Seeing none, I will move to the second order of business, which is relating to the minutes from the last two meetings. So I will make a motion first to approve the minutes of the April 13, 2026 regular meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Second order of business, besides me muting my phone, is I will make a resolution to approve the minutes from the April 22, 2026 special meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Seeing any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great. Third order of business is Adam Goudreau. Thank you for coming. Project manager from V-Trans, who's presenting on something near and dear to all our hearts, which is the project, an update on the project for the replacement of Bridge 42, which is the bridge that washed out in the summer of 2023 on Route 30 in front of the Colemans.
And I apologize, I'm not quite ready yet.
Okay. Do you want to just start talking before we have your slides up?
Sure. I'm not kidding.
I cover some of the introductory stuff. So, as mentioned, Adam Goudreau, I'm a project manager with V-Trans and the construction department. I can provide an update on the Jamaica ERP 23-1 or the 16 project as a moment. It's Bridge 42 over the Winhall River on Route 30. So really today my goal is to give you an understanding of our project approach on this specific project, give you an update on where we're at with design and construction, and then give everyone an opportunity to ask questions related to the project. I guess I'll just go through this overview because there's not much information there. So I'll talk about the V-Trans project development process. I do have a slide for that, so I'll wait until that's up to go through that.
Thank you.
And give a project overview of the existing conditions, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. We're going to select an alternative
Can we make the whole screen?
for the replacement, and then the traffic for construction, the current schedule, give you a brief summary, and then I'll open up questions. And I'm on page 4, right? Alright, so this is our traditional project development process. So it starts with the project being funded, then we go through a project definition phase. Once it's defined, then it's considered to be in design, and then work through design. That's anywhere, depending on the constraints of the project, could be a year, I'll say, to some of our legacy projects, many years. One thing to note about, and then once we're done with design, it gets placed out to bid and awarded to a contractor for construction. One thing to note about this project, these ER projects don't follow this traditional process when it comes to the project definition phase. Typically, we meet with communities during what we call the scoping phase to build consensus around the project. Here, FHWA and the maintenance district essentially define the bounds of the scope when it comes to design. So I'll touch on, and I guess kind of where we're at right now is we're in design, working through final design and obtaining right-of-way easements on this project. We've cleared the project environmentally and done all the geotechnical and utility work. So just some terminology as I go through this. Next slide, great. When it comes to a bridge, we have what we call the superstructure and the substructure. The superstructure consists of the deck, which is the concrete portion, typically either just concrete or an asphalt overlay on top of that. Below that are the beams, or sometimes what we call girders. And then those rest on bearings, which are still part of the superstructure. Those bearings provide that connection to your substructure, where you have your what we call abutment and wing walls. So the abutment consists of the bridge seat, the stem, and then the footing, which helps disperse that load. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but in the case of this bridge, the proposed bridge won't have a footing per se, it will have piles driven to refusal, which essentially they can't be driven any further. And that provides your bearing for the structure. The next slide. So this I just concluded, this is what's called the DDIR, or Detailed Damage Inspection Report. That was what was completed by the maintenance district and FHWA following the flood event. So here is identified the temporary repair was close the bridge, install a temporary bridge, get that old bridge out of there, so that now we can come in and replace it with a new structure. So project location, you're probably all well aware of this. So it's
Drive over it every day.
just west or north, if you will, Rossville all the way to Bonneville. The next slide just has some more close-up of that, if you will. And then the following slide.
Can I ask you a question? I couldn't see on the slide, so maybe on there, I apologize. You said that take out the temporary bridge and then put the new one back in.
The new one will go in and then the temporary will come out.
Okay, good. Because I heard it the other way around.
Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, we're gonna be walking across the river for a while.
So just some information on this bridge. I put these existing conditions as how they are today, so temporary bridge in place. This roadway is classified as a rural minor arterial, which is kind of how we technically define it, the agency. The bridge type, this is a temporary modular truss bridge. The previous one would have been called a steel beam and concrete deck bridge. Ownership is state of Vermont. This one was constructed in 2023. So just going, next slide, so going through some of the deficiencies, and that's the bridge 42, not bridge 5. As many of you are aware, impacted during the 2023 July flood event. The pier was undermined, as well as the outlet approach, if you will, or downstream approach, had a washout that undermined the pavement there. The previous bridge had approximately 950 square feet opening between the two spans. What's out there today has much more than that, because of eliminating the pier primarily. It also spans longer. And the previous low chord elevation was 12.6. The previous bridge, it overtopped, also overtopping the roadway, and this was actually not on the bridge itself, but to the south or east of the structure where the overtopping would occur.
Yeah.
That happened at the 4% minimum seepage probability, which that's the technical term for a 25-year storm. So, fairly frequent event would cause overtopping there. The pier that was there restricted flow further, that trapped debris as well. And I'll get into some slides later to show some of the reasons why that happens. And I'll talk about here. So the upstream embankment takes that sharp corner, so you get not only earth and debris, but trees that will come down with that, flush down the river and get hung up on the bridge. And I'll show some pictures of that. So there, next slide. So there you can see this is post-flood. All that debris jam stuck underneath the bridge that was actually resting on the beams of the bridge. That pier in the middle, as I mentioned, that's where the primary undermining was for the footing of the pier. Next slide. And then this is that washout on the approach from Rawsonville. So on the downstream side, one thing I do want to mention here is to the right side of that photo, you can see bedrock or ledge outcrops there. That is one of the interesting features of this location, is that you have sort of this immovable land feature downstream that really constricts the channel. And what we found is we were trying to optimize this structure length and height, was that was really what was controlling this site hydraulically and causing, like, we can improve it so much with the bridge, but ultimately that is what controls hydraulically. So the next slide, this is just to illustrate what that embankment looks like eroding coming into the structure, and then similar, I have a picture of that on the next slide, what that looked like following this one. So the next slide gets into what we have for resources at the bridge. Really, there's not much. It was determined that there's no critical habitat for bats here at this location, so we don't, within the project limits, so we don't have time of year restrictions on cutting for that. There weren't any significant impacts to our regulated natural resources, so whether that's wetlands, critical habitat, or agricultural soils. There's also no historic or archaeological concerns within the project constraints. And then just a couple of things to note. This is a very high use bicycle corridor, as I'm sure you're aware. So that typically factors into our approach to maintenance of traffic here with the temporary bridge in place. That's somewhat taken care of for us. And then also this section of Route 30 is not a public transit route, at least to my knowledge. So some of the design criteria we have, 3,600 vehicles per day. Sorry, next slide. With our design hourly volume, so it's kind of peak traffic event, is 500 vehicles per hour. 10% of those are trucks, and the design speed is 50 miles an hour. Which that is currently down posted and legally down posted so that traffic can enforce it. So the next slide talks about the selected alternative. So we're looking at putting in a new 120-foot steel girder bridge with integral abutments. It will have approximately 1,300 square foot opening, and the low chord will be a little bit lower, but provides more opening to the structure. With the structure type being an integral abutment, it does provide for more resiliency here. I'll talk about that in a second. It does not meet our hydraulic standard. So typically we have, I forget exactly how much freeboard, but we shoot for a certain amount of freeboard at the 1% annual exceedance probability. But here we're having overtopping at about the 2% annual exceedance probability. So that's the 50-year event.
Have really, those probabilities been updated at all?
they have. So that's all primarily driven by that downstream condition that I mentioned with the rock and the constriction of the channel there. We'll have the roadway typical sections will have 5-foot shoulder, 11-foot lanes, and then 5-foot shoulder.
It's 1 foot of freeboard for the Q100, by the way, for the 1% storm.
Thank you.
For the retrans hydraulics manual.
So the next slide is just a close-up of what we currently have for the design. So In addition to the structure, we'll be lining this channel with type 4 stone fill, so that's fairly large. It's basically our largest stone fill type, aside from going to like a heavy riprap.
And I'm gonna just interrupt really briefly. Is there any reason why we can't post this on the website? Can we post this on our website?
Yes.
Okay,
And
right. So,
Just give me
if
a
I-
copy, I remember.
I mean,
if I hadn't shared this with
Right.
Greg previously, I'll still follow up with a
so,
email
okay,
with the link to the
all right.
Okay, yeah, just send it to me and I'll take care of it. I'll get it.
And then all questions will be sent to Andrea. Just kidding. Kidding, not kidding.
So next slide talks about what, or trying to highlight the difference between what we have for integral abutment bridge versus our conventional spread footing.
Those bedrock shots, is that what that line downstream?
Yes, yeah, those little hatches downstream are all the bedrock.
There we
Yeah, there we go. So this slide, so with an integral abutment, the deck is cast integrally with those back walls. That's why it's called that. So it acts more like a frame instead of a simple beam, if you will. So what that does is it eliminates bridge joints, so that improves maintenance with regard to bridge joints, water getting down onto the beam ends, corroding the beam ends, eliminates that. The other advantage is that those abutment stems sit on piles driven to refusal, and we also designed that length so that there's a freestanding length. So in the event you get scour and or washouts behind the bridge is designed to
Stay there.
freeze to stay there. So it's designed for those piles that have
It's almost like it
certain
floats.
exposed height.
Right. Right,
But it
to those of us who are not engineers.
Versus just below was the previous bridge that was there. You can see that was on spread footings, particularly that pier was very shallow footing compared to where the channel bed is. So the next slide. So maintenance of traffic options. Typically we consider temporary bridge, closure with an offsite detour or phase construction. Here that was chosen for us with the temporary bridge. So the temporary bridge will remain in place until the new one is constructed, and then the temporary will be moved. Next slide. So we are currently looking to advertise this summer. So looking at currently the schedule has August. We're hoping to pull that into July. The reason for that is that steel lead times right now are 12 months, potentially be 15 months. So we need to advertise in July to get this constructed in 27. If it does look like we're going to be in that August, we're probably going to have to extend the completion date into 28 to allow for the project to be basically split between those two seasons and finish in early 28. The current project costs, and sorry, I'm just trying to be fully transparent with that, so that you're not fully expecting it to happen next year and then have things bleed over to 28. Just trying to be transparent that that is a possibility, just given where we're at. Total project cost, so this includes engineering, right-of-way construction, roughly $7.4 million.
It's not bad.
The next slide is just a summary of everything I talked about. So the temporary bridge was installed in 2023 in response to the flood. We're replacing it with a new integral abutment, smooth river bridge, traffic to be maintained off alignment, though technically on alignment because that's the existing alignment, on a temporary bridge. Construction anticipated to start in the summer of 2027. So that's all I have. I'll open it up to questions.
I didn't notice it. Are you raising it at all? Are you making it higher?
It's roughly the same as what it was previously, but the pier will be eliminated and it's a longer span.
The low chord, the existing low chord is 12, 12.6, the new proposed low chord is
12.
12, 10.7, so it's lowered by about 1.9 feet.
One thing I'll note is that that's not the entire bridge being lowered by that. It has to do with like how so the vertical alignment of the structure as well as the cross slopes. The beams are all at the same elevation across the structure.
Yeah, do you know how much the town's responsible for the cost? You guys know that?
Zero.
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 You're paying for entire set.
Zero.
So it's a very strange number. Federal highway pays like 83 and change percentage, and then the state's on the hook.
Okay.
Right.
That's what you
Yeah, otherwise we would have been given something to put in the budget. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned the ledge on the downside. Does it not help to take the ledge out or to widen that out or anything like that?
So that's a fairly steep slope on the other side. So if we remove ledge from the toe of that, rather than chasing it
Okay.
far up the hill and on private property, so beyond the scope of this, I guess.
Okay, that's okay, I was just curious.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I have several questions, but I don't want to hog any time for anybody else. My first question is, so since this bridge does not meet the current V-Trans standard of 1 foot of freeboard, the Q100, I'm assuming it also doesn't meet the headwater to depth ratio that you normally look for debris passage.
I have to follow up on that.
Yeah, if you could share with the select board when you share the information or the slide deck, it'd be great to know who the hydraulic engineer is, for anybody to get in contact with that person. I also have questions on the hydraulic study that usually is on the V-Trans plan set. I didn't see it on the preliminary plans, so I'd like to know if it was just a standard hydraulic study that was done, if there was any geomorphic studies that were done. I think downstream with the bedrock control in the channel, that's a great feature to have considering the sharp turn. But I also have concerns with the town road that is at the top of that channel, and the bank stabilization that will probably need to be done at some point. And I don't know if that's gonna be a town issue or a state issue, but I thought it might be worth bringing up now since this bridge could increase velocities. I don't know, I haven't seen the study, so I don't know. Sorry, I know that was a lot of things I just threw at you.
That's great.
Oh, let me just, does it meet headwater depth ratios?
Yeah,
That's the first question.
yes.
The second one was
The hydraulic study? And if it was the typical V-Trans one that's done, or if there's any more in-depth geomorphic study, which I don't know if the V-Trans hydraulics engineers do that, or if that's something that's usually consulted out. I'm not doing that, I'm not trying to get work, I'm just trying to understand and make sure this is the most sustainable project that we could be proposing.
No, and then the support for the town road.
Right.
Yeah, and the support for the town road, for Dyer's Road is above it,
Yeah.
which I do have personal interest in, I can say that blatantly. that I-
A member of the select board is intimately connected to that road. So I have to say there is some personal.
But I mean, just to be fair, on the upstream side, there's also a big stabilization issue, and then downstream of this, after the next bridge crossing, there's also another big stabilization issue. But I'd say Coleman Hill probably isn't as much of a concern
Right.
from what I can tell on aerial. So I'm not just looking at that one saying, yes, and there's a lot of woods there, so it's not like there's a town entity
Yeah.
in Everest.
So that makes
Yeah.
it doesn't cross.
I try to.
So here's my question, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but I have your email, is it okay if I share it with Andrea? Is that,
Yeah.
just so that, and we'll have a group email, and that way her questions can come to you directly rather than filtered by non-experts. Anyway, please, proceed.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I'll
All
look
right,
into those
great.
things. Yeah.
Karen, did you have something else?
Greg, is there anyone in the waiting room trying to get in?
There's been a lot of people coming in, but I don't think so.
Okay. He may have
What's the
been
plan say at the top,
there. Is Eugene Aletto in there yet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Just close that, what's that?
All right.
Also, I just want to say thank you, Adam, for coming in person. I really
Yes.
appreciate that and
You're welcome.
for presenting this.
Yes, absolutely. This has been extremely helpful, and my only request is gonna be when the bids go out and you have a sense of whether the timing is gonna have to be pushed out to 2028, if you could just
Yeah, so
update us.
when we advertise, we'll put that date in the contract, so when we get to advertisement, I'll certainly
Right.
update you on that.
Thank you so much. All right, I know, I feel like a little round of applause being added for coming and being in the hot seat. Seriously.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody was very happy to hear that you were joining. All right, terrific. The next order of business is, actually, we have guests. We have celebrity guests. So, and I think, is Wendy also?
Wendy's here.
Oh, she is. Terrific. So as previewed, we have our House of Representatives, Representative Laura Sibilia, who's here with us in person, and Senator Nader Hassim is here also in person with us, who is a member of our Senate Education Committee, and Senator Wendy Harrison, who is joining us via Zoom, and who was a member of the Redistricting Task Force, actually. So we have, and Laura is a member of the House Committee on Environment and Energy, so very actively involved in the item 4 on our agenda. So I have a few slides on item 5. I don't have any slides on 181. Essentially, every folks out in Zoom and in the room are probably largely aware that after our last meeting of the select board, we had heard a lot from the town. We knew we needed to join the chorus of towns that had been expressing concerns, particularly about the Tier 2 road rule and Tier 3. Not just Jamaica, but Jamaica in particular impacted by both of those. So we crafted a letter based on that. The select board met in a special meeting. That was minutes that were approved, and that was issued, and you guys got direct communication of that. Before we got to in between the meeting and the issuing of the letter, the committee met, and the LURB met. The Land Use Regional Board. Essentially, at least with respect to the LURB, the frequently asked questions that were updated by the board indicated that certainly the board's view was they were pencils down on any regulation involving the Tier 2 road rule or Tier 3 at all, with the expectation being that the House, in its consideration of one of next steps, I guess I would say, with the legislation before sending it back to the Senate for reconciliation, was that it would likely, those two elements of the legislation would be eliminated. We took an affirmative decision to issue the letter nevertheless, even though it looked directionally like things were going in the way that at least this town certainly felt strongly about, but it's nowhere near done. As I understand, the next step is that it will go, assuming the changes are made, it goes back to the Senate, and Seth's committee could make changes, not make changes, what have you, and then it'll be considered by the Senate. But again, not being a legislator, I'm sort of shorthanding that. So having you both here is really ideal. I would love it. I know this is not sort of coordinated, so just sort of organically to kind of share with the town. Do you feel I'm right in what I say in terms of directionally that the Tier 2 road rule is likely to potentially come out of what gets handed over to the Senate, and possibly Tier 3 as well, and kind of where things are? But I think, Laura, can I ask you, just because of where it is procedurally?
I can speak to the House and then turn it over to the Senators.
That would be lovely,
Their
thank you.
sense of what they think will happen there. It's still in committee. Expectation is they'll probably vote it out next week, I think. Senate Natural is a warning committee, so which means they typically stop meeting. The warning committees stop meeting next week. Okay, so another two weeks.
May 8th?
2
Okay.
weeks. So that means they'll try and get their business done. So it looks like it is essentially done. There is an addition. They'll be asking for a proposal to come back to the legislature next year on how to do a public outreach process that starts to answer the question of how do we protect critical natural resources. So a proposal about how to do a public outreach process that would come back to the legislature in the next biennium is also part of 325. And there's also a joint oversight committee, House and Senate, on permitting. There's a lot of angst around permitting in general and just making sure that we understand, wanting to make sure we understand how those things are going. So I expect that's gonna come out of the committee probably unanimously. We will see. When it comes, it has to pass the House floor. There was a fairly significant hue and cry out in Vermont to repeal all of Act 181, which is different than what's in H325. There are conservation advocates who would be just fine with it because what is being taken out are really the conservation measures, and the exemptions from Act 250 are still in. So if you repeal Act 181, those exemptions, and Senator Harrison could talk about a lot of the other aspects that are in there, and perhaps in the machine. So I don't think that could win the day on the House, but I expect we may see an amendment for that on the House. But I think that I would be stunned if we left without repealing the road rule and tier 2. I have not.
Tier 3.
Tier 3, excuse me.
Yeah.
Almost. I think the last time I have seen this type of a reversal was when then Governor Shumlin said, we're just not going to do 2. We can't afford the universal health care.
Yeah.
So, and this may be bigger, I don't know, but it certainly is faster. So that's what I guess I would have to say in the House.
All right.
Sure, so I can say that it's a bit difficult to know how the chair of the Natural Resources Committee is going to respond to what's coming from the House. My initial position was to support the delay of Tier 3 and also a longer delay of the road rule. The fact that they're both being repealed in the House, I'm fine with that as well. And I think that I'll share the same position as Laura, to be honest, but I would be very surprised if these things do not remain repealed.
In the Senate version, yeah.
Yes, I would be very surprised. I don't know what type of compromising or conferencing is going to go on between the Senate's position and the House's position, because the Senate's position was, this isn't working out. We gotta pause and take some time, come back to the drawing board and figure out what we're going to do and make this make sense. The House's position was put an end to this.
Right.
And so if there's a middle ground there, I'll be curious to see what it is, but I'm supportive of what the House is doing.
So I want to add that Chair Watson, who's the chair of the Sun Natural Resources Committee, she met with the Rural Caucus, which is largely House members, who had introduced legislation that is made to delay.
Right.
I did not think that repeal was possible. And so we wanted to
The art of the
delay
possible, right.
to make sure that Vermonters were aware of the scale. And she agreed to that. She came and met with us, asked what do we need to do here, included that. She has said to me now with what's going on in the House, and I think she's quoted publicly, that she is, she's very open to this repeal.
To a comparable repeal to the one that's, okay, all right.
Nothing's nothing till it happens.
All right. Did Senator Harrison want to add to that?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. And thanks for having all of us here or there. It's really helpful. So, so when the Senate had this choice a couple of months ago, or maybe just a month ago, we did take the action of postponing for 3 years the road rule and tier three, especially the road rule, and I supported that. And I think what the LURB said with pencils down, I think that's a very wise action for them at this time because they're in the process of making the maps and because there's a lot in 181. And as Laura mentioned, if we just repealed 181, then we go back to Act 250. And the point of 181 was to make development happen easier and especially in the towns, in the towns with water and sewer, and some additional uh, uh, development in towns without water and sewer. Um, that was the intent to make it easier and quicker to do that. Mostly by giving the towns authority, which is you may have heard of the 1A and the 1B. So the 1A and the 1B are still in, along with lots of other things. So it's we don't really know the impacts of what the repeal will be, but it's essentially the same for now as postponing them for a period of time. So I expect that is where the Senate committee is going to land, and that's the Natural Resources Committee that'll be doing that. And I'll support that. It makes sense. The We need to understand completely what we're doing, and the public really needs to understand what we're doing and what we're proposing, and chime in on other ways to do things, right? I mean, that's where I think the problem has been is we haven't defined exactly what people want, and it's not necessarily the process that folks want. But where do you want to end up? You know, you want to be able to develop your property with your children's homes, for example. I mean, that's really important to people, and if we can continue to frame the desires in the outcomes, that would be most helpful, in my opinion.
Well, that's very helpful. I mean, that last Wendy was a mouthful, right? Calling upon the public to say exactly what it is they want the outcome to be, other than simply, you know, with respect to what was tier three and parts of tier two, status quo, right? But I'd like to open it up to the public. Yes,
I'd
please.
just like to push back on that. You guys said that.
Can I ask you just to say your name?
My name is Dylan Field. You said the intent, was to make development easier in downtowns, but the road rule in tier 3 clearly does not do that at all.
Right.
Right. And I just want to push back that you voted for that, but it didn't make development easier. It made it harder.
No, I understand. The goal was to have development in the more populated areas, in the areas with water and sewer, and there was a compromise. With the road rule specifically, and the road rule gets really complicated. We don't have enough scenarios. So I was on the committee that looked at that did this initially, and what they showed us was mountains where roads were built just to go to the top of a mountain, and multiple roads, and it really devastated the mountain. So that was the purpose. But with a lot of these things, you really don't know until you start getting into the details what it's going to look like. And I still want more information on the road rule, not to keep it, but I would just like to know exactly where the issues were, because whatever the issues were, they're going to come back. And we just have to find a better way of both preserving what's valuable, but having it so that folks can develop their property in a responsible way. Does that answer the question?
Laura, did you have something? Oh, okay.
I mean, it partly did. The fact of the matter is that, I live on a really long road and wouldn't have been able to, live there or, go through the Act 250 just because of the hoops to jump through. So, yeah, it's, pretty, I understand the conservation aspect because I do believe in conservation. So this has nothing to do with like, no conservation at all. It's just being the responsibility we put on a lot of, regular landowners instead of, basically exemptions in downtowns and then, ski mountains, they already have Act 250, I realize that, but no extra burden was placed on anybody else within the state at all. And that felt, with no forewarning, now you're talking about getting input, there was no forewarning to homeowners, there was no input, there was none of that presented, so felt quite impressive when you find out that these rules would then apply, in a very short amount of time before they were about to apply, so. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
much
I
it.
mean, my personal view would be that the road rule was not about preventing lots of roads from, degrading natural resources, right? Putting in a road is an extraordinarily expensive exercise. In fact, often for those of us who own open lots, that's an inhibitor to actually building even a small home for yourself. I think I can look at everybody in this audience and they can all tell you that. But, I think the common view is conservation is what makes this state, one of the main drivers of what makes this state so great. I do a lot of work with conservation entities, and I'm very glad to be able to do that. So I think it needs to be smarter, and I think that's what you're saying. So we appreciate that. Any other questions on this topic from the field? Well, that was super helpful. Oh, go ahead,
I'm so sorry.
Andrea. No, that's
I just
fine.
want to kind of segue from what Devin was saying a little bit and speak to why everyone wants to avoid Act 250. And I think it's because the process is so burdensome, and I've handled it firsthand for many different kinds of landowners, from Stratton Mountain Resort, like Mount Snow Resort, to a single family home who's disturbing, certain resources or, certain development that triggers it. And I think we can all agree that Act 250 has done a lot of good. If you went to the Winhall meeting, you heard Paul Carocchio's great explanation of the development of Vermont over the last several hundred years. And I think we need to think about, and I encourage you senators and representatives to think about how can the LURB, now that Tier 3 and the road rule are hopefully going to be repealed, how can they actually make the Act 250 process better? And when I asked Janet Hurley that point blank, she said, well, we're only a 5-person board. And I want to challenge that and say, yes, you are only a 5-person board trying to have jurisdiction over the entire state. And I think, again, when Act 250 was initially enacted, there was only a very, I'm trying to think of the actual number Paul said, but it was a small percentage of towns in Vermont that had a zoning review. Thank you. It was 12 towns that had local zoning review. Now it's like 85% of towns have local zoning review. So I agree, we should not repeal all of Act 181. There is good being done there, and giving the towns back some say over jurisdiction. It's gonna help projects get reviewed quicker and not get bogged down through a bottleneck at the currently the Natural Resources Board and the future LURB. So I think we need to think about how can we give more power back to the towns to handle this and give them the resources to handle it. And I think we also need to, again, I think just before you think about what else can we take jurisdiction of, and I don't say we in like a derogatory manner, I mean, when we're looking to conserve more resources in a responsible way, we need to before we work on our plate, I guess I want to say, as the activity process, let's think about how we can reform the current process is what I want to encourage you to bring back to the LURB and maybe invite other consulting engineers, large landowners, people who have their land in current use, engage them in the process too, because I think a lot of people are scared by Act 181 as well as Act 59 with their land in current use and thinking about taking it out of current use, which I think
Big
destroys
mistake.
50 years of really hard work of actually doing really meaningful conservation in the state. So thank you for letting me ramble. I just wanted to get all those thoughts out.
So,
Laura, yeah.
I was,
We'll start.
may I respond to this? So, I was on the House committee where this 181 was 3 bills that ended up coming together. And so I was on the House committee which started the conservation aspect of this. And just for the record, I voted against it and was raising concerns throughout. And there are a lot of good things in there. I thought the process was really what I was worried about. The LURB was the explanation for the LURB that I have bought and see the potential for is in getting more consistency with Act 250 across the state and faster decisions. I know, I've seen the data that there has been in the past a statistical anomaly in our district in terms of the amount of time it takes to get a permit. And so having more consistency and guidance for all of the district managers was something I thought that would be helpful. I will also just reiterate that in 325, which is moving, there is a joint committee established to provide just oversight, which means, hey, let's shine a light on permitting in general. We often hear, it's not Act 250, it's the other permits. And I have spoken with Chrissy and others about some of these other permits and how long they can take. So, heard.
Thank you.
Can I also briefly respond? Your points are very well taken. Thank you. And one thing I wanted to also raise was, one of the concerns that I have about Act 250 and the process is the immense amount of costs that are associated with it, and the fact that the people who have the means to build a 2,000-foot road, paying thousands and thousands of dollars for an Act 250 permit is nothing to them, and they can get their 2,000-foot road going up, a hill or a mountain. But to the folks who may need to build a lengthier road to get past some ledge or get past or avoid a wetland so they can build a house on the plot that they have, they may not have the means to spend all that time and money through the Act 250 process. So, and that's just a segue to say the road rule was my least favorite part of that whole thing. But thank you.
Yes, please.
Well, it was very interesting. Oh, sorry, Travis Dale. It was very interesting to hear you say that it was a couple of different bills, because that was what was most obvious to me about 181, was that it was trying to do too much. The Act 250 exemptions are great to encourage building in the downtown, but keep that separate from conserving and preventing roads from cutting up wilderness areas. So what I wanted to mention, though, that I think is relevant both to 181 and to the education reform bill that I know a number of people are also interested in discussing, was actually something that our bridge builder said, and he used the line, build consensus around the project. And that was the real problem with 181, is that the people who are going to be impacted were not actually, included in the process. And I would argue that we have the identical problem with the education reform bill, which is the people who are going to be significantly impacted have not really been brought to the table and included in the process. So we don't need to talk a lot about 181 in my mind, since hopefully the most onerous parts of that are in fact at least temporarily tabled. But the building consensus part, I think the power of Facebook and a whole lot of pitchforks and torches just made everybody go, whoa, maybe we should include everybody in the discussion. before rolling out these sort of top-down legislative expectations, shall we say.
Drew.
Drew Hazelton, from Jamaica, and just to segue the two topics together, I like to think of myself as a young person from Jamaica. I grew up in Newfane and moved into Jamaica when I was 16, and I've raised my family here. Part of the reason why our education system is having the trouble that it is because of the rules around being able to build affordable housing in towns like Jamaica. So if we continue to focus our legislation and rulemaking on making it easier to build housing in Brattleboro and Springfield and Bells Falls, and continue to focus our energy on making it more and more difficult for our rural communities, not only are we destroying our rural communities and only allowing, like you said, the wealthiest of the wealthy to live here, but we're also destroying our local schools, our local sense of community, and it all ties back to if we can't have affordable housing because it's $200,000 for the Act 250 permit in 2 years. I happen to own a piece of land in Jamaica that I would love to have my kids build on. There's no way we can get through the permitting process. Even though that land's been in the family now for 3 generations, like that's what's wrong with the system. If you want people to stay, you want to build family and community, we have to think about the rural communities, not just the downtowns. And from what I can see, all the legislation, all of the thought process is going into how do we build better Brattleboros and better Bells Falls and better Springfield at the cost of Jamaica, Newfane, Townsend. So
Yeah, I mean, I hear that last point, but really what I would ask, personally, being here in Jamaica, Jamaica's a town that has no water or sewer, and we have tried. And no zoning, but I think really what I'm focusing on is you know, you don't have the infrastructure in the physical area that would benefit from the tier 1, you know, exemptions. You know, it does always come down to money. We thought we would have an opportunity with ARPA funds, and they were spent in year 1. So when we were ready to actually submit our application, there were no funds left. So I know money does, I have to make it just like a cheap, you know, plea for money, but I know money does come from the federal government from time to time. Jamaica, I think, is a perfect example of a town that, you know, to undertake a sewer project and a water project eventually is just, it's impossible. I mean, even a bond is just not really feasible for this town for the money. And we know how much it's gonna cost because, you know, Chrissy, who's right behind you, led, you know, as was the consultant for the town putting together both an initial study on water and then a much more fulsome study on wastewater. So I would love for this town to benefit from those exemptions, but the only way we would is if we could somehow get some or all of the money needed for these projects. And then for local businesses that try to do some development, we hear from the folks at DEC that we can't because they say you can't get, you know, even if we could put in a sleeve or something for a well to make sure that that well could be a public water source. Basically, we're told no, because they want us as a town to put in water or sewer. And we can't, so we're kind of in this catch-22. So anyway, that's my very blatant plea for thinking of the town of Jamaica when money does come in. I know that's more on the federal side, so maybe it's time to talk to Bernie, but yes.
Dillonfield, maybe possibly one way to have more money in the town would be to be in a different school district, so people want to buy.
Yeah, we could go to the next topic. Yeah, segue.
I'm dead serious. I can't tell you how many how many people buy in a certain area for being in a school district, and we are not. And it's a deal breaker. It's certainly a deal breaker for me. Probably will have to move. Right now they want to move Jamaica School closing Newbrook, 45 minutes from where I live, right by the bridge that's about to get replaced. It's absolutely insane to go all the way down there. My family, everybody lives in Winhall. I work there. All the ties are that way. Go to Manchester once a day, and so basically.
So with that, I'm going to take that as the segue to the discussion of school reform. So I'm going to whip through these. I put together a few slides because I've been hearing not just from the folks in this room, but from a lot of folks. So I just wanted to really quickly summarize for our guests and also for everybody who comes what our current situation. But the first slide is just our backdrop. Jamaica joined the West River Education District, called the RED, which is within the Windham Central Supervisory Union in 2016 as part of Act 46. RED consists of Jamaica, Windham, Townsend, Brookline, and Newfane. Ever since 2016, when we joined, enrollment for Jamaica Village School pretty much went consistently downward. Everybody in this room knows that the closure of Jamaica Village School is underway. Classes ceased there for this school year, and we've had 2 votes. Most recently, we were asked again by the school district to vote to close the school. We held that vote and a hearing in the form of an information session. 2 of our members of our select board led a subcommittee to kind of put out for the information session what were some of the possibilities of what we could do with the school. And the town pretty much overwhelmingly voted to close the school and to purchase the property. So we're now, that's our current situation in terms of our local school. It's really important for us to point out that public high school options for the town of Jamaica are extremely, it's basically limited to Leland and Gray due to the distance available, for other schools that are school choices within the district. So, and then, the citizens of Jamaica suffer a significant disparity in our tax base versus the tax bases of the other towns within the West River Education District. And I just wanted to include a snapshot. This is from the equalization study results. They were conducted last year, but they were just certified in January. That's why this is the most recent version. But if you just take a look at it, our equalized education property value is over 540 million. The next closest is Newfane at 426 million. And our, despite that, our CLA is very high. And, it just kind of will jump out to you immediately that Jamaica is like what I think of as the anchor tenant for the West River Education District. And the only way Jamaica would have an opportunity to be in a different district based on our current articles is if every other town in our district voted to let us out. But if you just look at this one page, there's no way that's gonna happen. So Jamaica is where it is, despite its disparity in terms of economic and other complexion and other characteristics. So I just kind of put up both the current House district map, and I put a little arrow so you can see where Jamaica is, and the Senate district map, if you'll put that one up for me. Thank you. So it's especially, kind of startling when you look at the shape of the Senate map. It's like one of these things is not like the other, and that would be the town of Jamaica. So what am I hearing? What is the board hearing from folks? And what do you just see on Facebook? But particularly with respect to Jamaica, we are concerned about both maps. Jamaica is a mountain town. I think anyone we would talk about who lives here or even knows about the town, we're clearly a mountain town. And yet, because we have so many fewer educational opportunities than the other mountain towns, fewer families and children who might otherwise settle in a mountain town are not going to settle here. Towns where CLAs that are impacted by proximity to mountain resorts like we are, right? We are, you might have heard the euphemism, a gold town, right? Because our properties become very valuable just simply due to our proximity to Jamaica. It's why my parents back in 1968, and Stratton was only, 7 years old at that point, why they bought here. And that's still the case. That deep disparity in the tax base suffered by Jamaica, really, we need to equalize that in the new regime. That's, one of our main asks here. In the Senate version, which is still in committee, if you just sort of look back at the map, do you want to just pull that up? I mean, just sort of look at that Route 30, in order for Dover, and this was actually Drew, this was your point, any student in Wardsboro and Dover literally has to drive through Jamaica to get to a school in Winhall or in Manchester. I mean, so it's, that to me is, quite a sore thumb there.
We
So-
would drive to Bells Falls or Brattleboro.
Right, and we would be driving much farther to either Bellas
The
Falls
buses
or
are gonna pass each other.
Right, and the buses are right, exactly, thank you. Actually, that's right. Both maps don't really, we think, and I'm hearing from folks, support Jamaica's very active underway drive to be a community, right? We have, non-state sponsored and non-governmental sponsored organizations that are extremely active. We have a very close-knit community across from all different walks of life. There is a very strong desire to make this town, and I've been here since I was 6, so to really overcome, first of all, the fact that we don't have town sewer and water, and that has really damaged our ability, it has limited our ability to create that fulsome town center. And so one of our asks, because it's kind of easy for our senators who are here, is that if you could let the education committee know as you go back and look at that map, that we really would like to be with mountain towns, basically. I mean, so Southwest District is really where we're looking. So I did add also taxes. Taxes are obviously a big issue. It's a perennial concern, but I think we're a bit house on fire, and thanks to Drew and other folks in the West River Education District who really brought this to everyone's talk. Speaking about communication, so I think that effort really has brought in a lot more people into the dialogue, not just people who have kids or who are likely to have kids, but people whose kids, like mine, are well out of school. Well, one's going back, but that's a whole nother story. So we are looking at a situation where funds that have been utilized in the supervisory union and West River Education District accounts, so to speak, in their coffers to buy down tax rate, complemented by the state level buy down, they're gone after this year. So we're driving 60 miles an hour towards a sheer wall next year. We don't know whether the state's gonna buy down next year and how much. And I feel like it's kind of silence. I'm sort of trying to read the tea leaves on that. There's like no tea leaves to read. So I have to assume in my role that the citizens of this town are looking at no buying down of the tax rate. And if you look at our CFA and our tax base, it's going to become unaffordable for a lot of folks in town.
How much would it go up, do you think?
Okay.
Drew.
Drew?
So we haven't done the calculations yet, but the buy down this year was 1.1 million total, and we were at the penalty threshold. And what we're talking about is lowering the penalty threshold,
Right.
and having no buy down, so you'll be double taxed on all of that. So you're probably 20-30%-ish.
Easy.
Yeah.
After
It's a big number.
double-digit increase.
Yeah. No, yes, please.
Regarding the buy down, there is a buy down in the budget that we're voting on tomorrow in the Senate. It's for $120 million.
For this year.
For this year, yeah. There were other conversations about having $120 million stretch out over 3 years, because when you buy it down, it puts upward pressure for the next year on taxes, and so that means the following year we're going to have to find another $100 million, if not more, to buy down taxes, unless 40 or 50,000 people move to the state. So the aggregate proposed tax rate with the buy down is going to be 3.8% increase. That's across the state. It doesn't take into consideration the non-property taxes that are still being calculated for this fiscal year. The non-property taxes are what are used to pay for education before we go to the homestead and the non-homestead taxes. And so I just want to be super clear that 3.8%, that's an average across the state. There are other areas where it could be higher and other areas where it could be lower. So just wanted to share that regarding the potential for a buy down.
For this year.
For this year.
Yeah.
And just one final caveat, and then I'll stop talking here. All of this is also subject to change over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that 120 million by Wednesday, it could be 80 million or it could be 150 million.
Right.
I'm being slightly dramatic, but what I'm trying to say is a lot of changes happen in these final weeks, and a lot of the policies will get hashed out in a conference committee between the House and the Senate.
Okay. Good. So that's just to the last bullet point is simply that this would be compounded if next year, and thank you, Laura, your note really kind of crystallized this for me. I was struggling a little bit with it, but what you published, I think just today or yesterday, really helped. That it's tough enough that we're driving 60 miles an hour into a brick wall. It's gonna, we'll be driving at 70 miles an hour if we are also, if the penalty threshold, excess spending threshold is lower than 112. So, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to, kind of crystallize some thoughts. It's a lot to ask, to kind of present to you here, but I wanted to do it because we knew you were going to be here face to face. I want to also give other folks an opportunity to speak, but I would love to, I know we would love to hear from you guys.
Can I just add one last
Yes.
thing? You mentioned the excess spending threshold. That was put into the Senate yield bill. It did go from 118 to 112. It was initially Bill S-220, which passed out of the Senate. I was opposed to it. Windsor County was the hardest hit. Windham County was the second hardest hit with
Feeling it.
double taxed
Right.
because of the excess spending.
Right.
So I don't have the chart right in front of me, but this district wouldn't be impacted by the 118, but it would be impacted by the 112. Is what I got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, just wanted to make you know that I'm aware of that as well.
Thank you. Drew.
And that's the only reason that we weren't impacted by the 118 is because we took $1.1 million in fund balance in order to get below that. Even at 118, we were going to be double taxed on a significant chunk, which is why we use fund balance.
Right. So I think if you probably looked at a bunch of towns who have done exactly what we've done, which is use what excess funds they have to buy down their tax rate, that's what is keeping them below 118. But there are probably many, many more than just Jamaica that are over 112. Now, I'm sure someone on the committee processes these numbers, and I understand the incentive that the legislature's attempting to create. The problem for municipalities like Jamaica is that the portion of the budget that is on our tab, so to speak, that is driven by the supervisory union, into which we have no insight or say, is what's getting us, you know what I mean? It certainly feels viscerally to me like that's how we get above 112, right? That's something I personally struggle with. I could be wrong about that. There's other folks that know more about it, but the structure, the supervisory union structure, and I know that certainly the House bill is attempting to kind of refine that. So I'd love to hear about what can towns, in the new legislation, what can towns do to kind of drive that, to get those costs down so that we're not facing this scenario.
So are you asking about the House bill that just came out?
I think it's
Or-
real, either one. I know Chrissy had, did you wanna kind of volunteer some thoughts?
I'm not directly related to that.
Okay. Oh, not that, okay. I mean, I guess even if it's not something you say to us now, but that you know that this is like, we're struggling because we feel like we're handed a massive chunk of the budget that we're either gonna be penalized for or not. And we have no say over whether, how that could possibly be chipped away at. It's like, it's this ivory tower, which is the supervisory union. We have no transparency and we have no say. Oh, this is-
We have no vote on it, this is what we're trying to.
Okay. Oh, does someone, is there someone? Wendy, please, thank you.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts. Yes, so I was on the redistricting task force. And one of the big takeaways was that is that towns need to be really engaged in the education system. And we can't do this as a top down, or we shouldn't do this as top down, which is exactly what we're doing now. So my concern is that we're going to end up after this session in the same kind of situation where we are with 181, where we're going to craft some bill and law that is just going to have unintended consequences because we aren't taking the time to understand exactly what's going to happen. And our system is just so complicated too. The financial system is just much too complicated. But I hear you. I also voted against the reducing the threshold to 112. We're in a pickle, and the rural areas especially really have different needs than the more populated areas, and we found that out very much. And in our area in particular, it's more like your area. I'm saying our area because of our districts, but the interior part of Windham County is really like the Northeast Kingdom, and folks were very surprised about that because it can take a long time to get somewhere, and kids should not be on buses for an hour, especially small children, and smaller schools can be really effective schools also. So I am hoping that we can find a way to energize Leland and Gray, especially. I mean, that's what we're talking about, because there's a lot of towns that rely on Leland and Gray, and it's really important to the area. So, but I totally hear what you're saying about where you want your kids to go and the real estate implications. But that's why we need to, or I would prefer this to be a longer conversation with the towns and take more time to make this decision.
Laura, yeah.
Just kind of frame this discussion. So, a lot of the items that you have pointed to around property taxes, around the CLA, those are shared throughout the state. And there's a hue and cry around property taxes. There's a hue and cry in my house around property taxes. I think just to frame the discussion, just to make sure everyone is sort of on the same page, and I'll ask my senators to keep me honest here. The governor's adamant about property tax relief ASAP. And so the excess spending penalty reduction, something that the governor supports, because that will that will really put pressure to cut budgets. Mandatory consolidation, which is not the bill that came over from the House. Top-down consolidation is something that the governor is supporting to get those, because And again, keep me honest, we were at a meeting on education in Brattleboro on Saturday. You know, when we're looking at what has been driving healthcare costs, there's one, education costs, which is property taxes, healthcare, you know, what happened during COVID, what happened to property values during COVID has created this big catastrophe around the CLA. We don't have enough capacity for appraisals throughout the state. So this is not an easy problem to solve. I would argue that the House bill that has been sent over with CSAS provides a lot more bottom-up flexibility, and especially for Jamaica wanting to look at being in a different district. I think there is that possibility with the study committees of making that case. What else did I want to say about that? So I think there's a balance, and the governor has said he won't sign a budget or a yield bill if we do not go along. You know, the legislature cannot override the governor. I mean, you could, but it's unlikely. And it's also unlikely that there are enough, you know, so like, talk about going into a wall, right? So how does this come together? So I would just tell you, education is something that always divides in the legislature, always. People have very deep personal feelings. It is impossible to find a consensus, impossible. And so, you know, this going out to communities, this process that's envisioned in the House bill is something that I really support, though there are things in the House bill I don't love. The property tax issue, it's a big problem. And, you know, the governor wants us to spend all of these one-time funds now. So, no problem this year, bigger problem next year. So it's wicked, you know. I think we have to engage communities with this work and, you know, hope to accelerate. We've got to see some mergers, we've got to see less people.
Right.
So.
Chrissy's been waiting.
Yeah.
For 1 second.
I'm sure she's gonna cover it.
All right. This might be an overlap.
Hi, Chrissy Haskins. So I sent a letter, I don't know, a week or two ago to the Senate Education Committee. Our senators and representatives were copied on the letter, as was the governor. And I just wanted to, and Karen actually shared it on Facebook. I just wanted to kind of focus. There's a lot of things we've been talking about here in this discussion that are really important. And to be honest, I would love to talk to all three of you about that for like hours. But I kind of want to focus in on one point, one thing that we're really looking for right now, and this is our pretty much our immediate ask right now, and it's something that we feel is really critical to Jamaica, and getting it done before any education bill gets passed. So hopefully it can be incorporated. Jessica said we would like to be in the same district as the other mountain towns. We certainly would like to be, but we need to be. It's not just we want to be, we need to be. For years, you know, Jessica's presentation showed a lot of this. For years, we have been the only mountain town in a district with non-mountain towns. All the other mountain towns have some level of educational opportunity well above and beyond what Jamaica has. We have much lesser educational opportunity. That has hurt us as a town. When people in this area are looking to relocate, when families are looking to relocate to the Stratton area or the Mount Snow area because they want to be near those mountains or they work at those mountains, they're not looking at Jamaica because we do not have the educational opportunities that the other mountain towns have. We cannot compete. So we're instead in a district with other towns that aren't similar to us. And I think we all feel like we're kind of the bank. We're the funding mechanism for the district we're in. But we're not getting anything out of it. My son is 8, and since before he was born, I have sat through listening to Drew on the board talking about, not just Drew, but the whole board, talking about, well, should we close Jamaica School this year? Since before my son was born, since Act 46 happened, this board, the West River Education District, has been talking about should we close the Jamaica School. Every single year, there's no consistency, there's no stability here. And we have now lost the Jamaica School. My son actually doesn't even go to our district anymore. I live in Jamaica and we are out of district. And that's a choice we made. But Jamaica, in order to bring in families and not be a second homeowner town, we need to maintain our community, we need educational opportunity. And the way we see to get that is to have both of our senators and our representative support us in the House and Senate by telling the education committees that this is what we need. That's my ask.
Perfect.
Yes.
Can Dana,
I would
there's.
just like to say exactly what Chrissy just said.
Well said.
Yes.
Dana, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go a different route. I do have concern about CISA. We're having trouble with our supervisory. We had a budget tonight and there was some pushback. Did we win or not win?
I mean, we reduced the budget by 450,000, but probably not in the right places.
Yeah, let's see.
Reduced it by 450,000.
We think there's some inefficiencies and maybe too top heavy at the SU. And we're gonna, we were originally looking at cutting student program. And I'm a little fearful about the CISA just being another administrative bureaucracy that we have to send taxpayer dollars to out of our district to pay for the CISAs, because they're not replacing the SUs. Like it would be CISAs and then school districts, it's gonna be CISAs, SUs. And so we got administrative and not direct to student funding going to direct to the students. We're paying administrators. I mean, we've looked up the figures. We're getting administrators who are making six figures. They want to add a co-principal to a school, middle school and high school of 235 kids? And I know there's principals out there in the world. I've asked all my friends in education who live in other areas, and one principal's handling 500 to 1,000 kids. But he has counselors underneath him. But putting another high wage person that's not directly involved in direct student, I'd love to pay teachers, good wages. And we did in this district. We gave them good pay raises for the next 3 years to retain, because teachers are hard to retain. I think we're a little top-heavy in our district and our SU, or we're paying them too much for what they're worth. I came around and said it.
So, may I just?
Yes, of course.
So I apologize, I don't think I was articulate previously. So, CISAs or BOCES, this region is already, this is the one that already exists here, you're already in one.
Yeah.
There are study committees, that will take place, that will have some funding for them. And this is where I think there's flexibility for Jamaica in sections 14, 15, and 16 in the House bill.
To find districts that we might align better with.
Yeah, in the study committees.
I know that House bill had us going with Bellas Falls, which means they would probably keep their high school, eliminate ours, and make ours a pre-K, but our kids would have to travel over Route 35, which is in the winter.
It's like an hour drive.
I will just tell you, I'm fairly certain that the Senate district map is DOA. So the district that you're asking to go into, it's highly unlikely. I certainly would defer to Senator Hashim, but speaking for the House, I think highly unlikely.
So a few points. So CISAs, I totally get your concern. There's, you don't want to just keep adding bureaucracy and administration here, but as far as I understand it, at this point, the whole point of a CISA is to distribute the expenses among a certain region for different contracting services, for example. So if, for example, one school district needs to hire an English tutor, by themselves, that costs a lot. But if there's a CISA with 3 districts and those 3 districts all need an English tutor, then the CISA, just by the way it's incorporated, can be the entity that's responsible for managing the contract and saying, okay, we're gonna split this 3 ways, and this English tutor will travel and be used throughout the CISA. That's kind of like the oversimplified concept of the CISA. And I'll also add, the Senate got the House bill 5 days ago, and so we're still going through the 140 pages, getting all the nitty-gritty details. And we've got a pretty short runway. We've got about 3 weeks to get through it all. But these concepts aren't brand new to us, but we are still going to work through all the details. The Senate bill, switching gears from the House bill to the Senate bill, and there's mention that it's been on arrival. I will say that, this is me being very candid, there are strengths and weaknesses between the House and the Senate. One thing that, in my opinion, is a weakness in the Senate is education policy. Not the best at crafting education policy, and that's my own opinion. The bill that we have right now is essentially Act 46 2.0 with no tax incentives. What is being contemplated in the Senate bill is 2 years of voluntary mergers, and even if you voluntarily merge, you may still get forcefully merged after the 2 years is up. And that forced merger will be based on the State Board of Education's decision and the Agency of Education's decision, or collaboration with the State Board of Education. And there's no evidence that, from Act 46 at least, that we are saving money or that our taxes are getting lower. And from the studies that the Redistricting Task Force looked at, from other states which went through mergers, forced mergers are generally very harmful and lack efficiencies and improvements for rural areas. The only one that I could find where there was improvement was when Philadelphia merged 6 schools into 4 schools in a population area of 400,000. We don't have anything like that in Vermont. But in other states with similar demographics as ours, the forced mergers it did not lead to savings, and it did not lead to improved student performance. So I'm kind of just going all over the place now, but yeah, that's the Senate bill in a nutshell. I'm not trying to drag on my colleagues.
So just no, absolutely. So when you talk about, so in terms of the ability to have, obviously we have 2 very different maps right now, right? The 2. So what is the, how do they get slammed together and, right?
I think everybody is kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop because we don't, I don't know what goes through Senator Baumgart's head. I like him very much. He's a friend, we get dinner sometimes and I like him, but I genuinely don't know what he's thinking at the moment regarding how we're going to navigate this process. And I am optimistic that there is less of a desire to fight with the House than there was last year. Last year it was very chaotic, and I haven't seen a conference committee like that before. I haven't been there that long, but I haven't seen the
same one like that.
Yeah, there we go. I don't think the desire to fight with the House in the same way we did last year exists this year. And I don't know what the count is, but I know a lot of senators are not supportive of forced mergers and are not supportive of the current Senate proposal.
So I just want to add also with the Senate map, I hear your point about, you guys said, you put Dover and Wardsboro on that map, which is not happening. And not Jamaica, like, I get the difference also, and so, and it has to do with how you're organized now, part of it is, what's the objective of the map, et cetera. So I hear you, I understand the like, what is this? I do think there's opportunity, and I think there's opportunity.
Right, the concern that I have is, even on the house map, is that you've got a gold town in Jamaica, all the way on the edge of the district. So we're really penalized because we're an anchor earner, but we have to travel the farthest, it's like,
The worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst.
Imagine the legislature being inspired to put you in with other gold towns. Think about that.
Us and Stoll.
Right, okay, so fine. So then we're more central in the district and we have a school. I think it can't, right now, the situation is just untenable. I think that's Chrissy's point, and I agree. It's just like, how much kicking can we get? Chrissy, go ahead.
Realistically, if the point here is regionalization in the future, realistically, there is no regionalization at Leland and Gray. It's going to happen in Bellows Falls or Brattleboro. Neither one helps us at all. I live in the southeast corner of Jamaica. So I live almost as far away from, looking at the high schools around, we've got Brattleboro, we've got, looking at where the regional high schools would be, likely. We've got Brattleboro, we've got Bellows Falls, we've got probably Springfield.
Bennington.
Yeah. Manchester, Twin Valley.
Yeah.
Twin
So-
Valley would get
Get
absorbed
absorbed,
into
right.
Brattleboro.
Yeah, right.
So looking at this realistically, I live in the southeast corner, and out of all of those towns, the closest one for me to get to is Manchester. And I live in Jamaica, I live kind of the closest to Brattleboro, but it's faster for me to get to Manchester than it is to Brattleboro. It's definitely not faster to get to Bellows Falls. Or any of the other potentially regionalized
20
areas.
minutes to Manchester.
I mean, I see, Laura, that we're looking at it from the outside, right? And we can see the differences between a high school like Leland and Gray and Brattleboro or Bellows Falls or Springfield or Bennington. I mean, it doesn't look, feel, smell, walk, or talk like a regional high school. It seemed, just looking at your expression, I think your view is it's definitely a regional high school, but it doesn't, considering the direction and how much money has to be cut out of education. I'm scratching my head, how does it survive as a regional school?
I support Jamaica being able to advocate in the process to be aligned directionally with where they go. So don't mistake me for that, okay?
Right. No, but I want you to be honest.
I will never be anything.
But honest.
I have to say, but I'll always tell you what I think. And I think that's possible in the House language. I would not worry so much about the maps because I don't think you're going to see a top-down map imposed. Would you agree?
I would agree. But again, I want to add the caveat that I've mentioned earlier, which is that everything that we're talking about, all subject to change over the next 3 years. And so I'm only saying that because, I don't want.
Right, and the most important thing is that you're here and you're hearing the specifics of our situation. I mean, Laura, I think, is here a lot. But even that, unless we're all sitting in a room together talking about this topic, I feel like it doesn't go in so far. I've got lots of hands.
Please feel free to invite me more often.
Yeah. All right, but I think Chrissy, it's your turn and then we're gonna.
So I get that there's going to be these studies. I don't think the last one went real well, so I don't have a lot of faith in the next one. So I hear what you're saying about wait for the study. I just don't think we didn't do well last time. And I just don't think we're gonna do well this time. We're gonna be stuck in a study group with towns that want something very different than we do. And I just don't think we're gonna do well there. And I want to ask to all three of you, what do you need from us to help us get where we need to be, in a position that we are able to compete against other mountain towns for permanent residents, for families to live here? That's what we need. And so what do you need from us to support you in supporting us in the legislature?
So if I can, so this is how I approach every bill that comes in front of me, is what are the potential opposition points to this? And oftentimes whenever I'm asking questions about bills that I actually support, people tend to think that I have a different position because I'm asking all these questions and try to pick it apart. So what I would want to know when I'm looking at the actual policies and making those determinations is, what are the potential drawbacks? Is there anybody who doesn't agree with the idea of Jamaica going into a different district, and why? If that doesn't exist at all, then that's also good to know. But I try to think of things from as many different perspectives as I can before setting my sights on something and trying to make a change. So that's not saying that I'm opposed, but I look at everything with an open mind, and I just need the details from all the different perspectives. That's what I would need.
I mean, I think the easy answer to that is the other members of the current regional education.
New thing.
That's because they need our money to survive, right?
That's what I assumed, but I didn't know.
Right.
I mean,
No, you will hear that. You will hear that. They're not shy.
No, they're not. And Emily's got a lot of voice.
So if I can make a counterpoint, as I have to look at all of the towns, equally and fairly. So when I'm looking at these other towns who would potentially lose, I think I saw in the email 60 to 80 students, right? Mm-hmm. So in the foundation formula, if we're talking about 70, that would be $1 million just base that would leave the district, not taking into consideration any of the weights. So when I hear the perspectives from the other towns, I'm not sure what question I'm trying to ask here, but what do you think their perspectives would be, and why would they be concerned about Jamaica leaving? And I don't know if I phrased that question well, but what I'm trying to say is I also have to think about all the other towns that would also be impacted in a fair and balanced.
It's also worth noting that 60 to 80 probably isn't the number of students here.
Yes.
Because so many students have already opted out
Yes.
of the public education system and found ways to
Pretty much
be in another district. So
Right.
we're doubly getting screwed because
Right.
half the town is already figuring out a different way to
100%.
get it done.
Paying.
So those 60 to 80, well, that's important to them. They've already thrown away another 60 to 80 kids.
Right. Right.
That's the goose. And
It's-
the
Ample time looking at the cost of the SUs. Like, are we focusing enough energy in the assessment of education? I mean, we have 4 superintendents in Windham County. That's a debate tonight about the salaries of superintendents and administrative staff. We have superintendents that are only overseeing a few hundred children. That seems to be maybe
Making 6 figures, in excess of 6
we
figures.
should be looking at.
And not barely 6 figures.
Right, right. Well, generous.
Consideration
Right.
to the SU structure.
That's a conversation we have a lot in Senate Education, and there are proposals of going down to just 12 SUs, and then we get the crowd of superintendents who come in and they say, all right, yeah, you can get rid of my position, but the one superintendent who's covering all of Windham County and all of Windsor County, they're going to need deputy superintendents and additional staff. So you may be getting rid of these positions that pay 170 or 180, but you're going to have to get at least a couple other positions that pay 70 or 80 to help that superintendent across two different counties. That's the counterpoint, or one of the other nuances that we've heard.
So I am mindful of time. We're so grateful. Travis, we're gonna do one more question. I hope everybody's okay with that.
We'll have points A, B, C, and D. But, so first and foremost, like everybody in this room will agree that our taxes are way too high. I get Scott's sort of ultimatum in that regard. I think it's worth pointing out that, deserve it or not, Vermont currently enjoys a top 5 in the country reputation for education. We could talk about how that's based on per pupil spending and class size and some figures that might just mean expensive and not good. And I'm not talking about test scores, but the reputation, the brand, the image, super valuable. As somebody who was a teacher during COVID, we had hundreds of families move here during COVID strictly because of the educational opportunities. I'm getting to that. Strictly because of the educational opportunities that school choice towns could afford to their families. Yeah, they had yard space and 6 feet and all the rest of it, but they moved here because of educational opportunities. It's one of the main drivers that I have heard from countless realtors all over southern Vermont, but only the towns that have choice. Students did not move to Jamaica. There was no increase in Jamaica Village School. We had over 100 new students in the Winhall and Stratton area going to those schools simply because of school choice. School choice is over 100 years old in this state, and I would like to know how all of our representatives, Senate and House, feel about school choice, whether or not they are in favor of it on the record. And I need to point out that Scott's sort of emphasis on lowering taxes simply by education, in my opinion, is very short-sighted. We are about to ruin our reputation nationally for education just to lower taxes, and there are a bunch of other ways that we could lower taxes. You mentioned healthcare before, huge opportunity, but more—
We need to talk.
Yeah. More importantly, of all the things that anybody in Vermont is gonna say yes to overpaying for, it's education. It's the one thing I'll be like, take my money. Everything else I might fight you on, but that, no way. So I know this is not gonna be a popular comment, but the same way that Act 250 has been sort of a driver behind 181 and the problems there, is it time that we talk about Act 60? Because the real reason why Jamaica's pissed is because we're spending tons of money and not getting that back, and then being told you can't go spend your money where you want to spend it. That's a double whammy that I can't live with, and me and my 3 kids will also probably be moving out of this town so that we can have the educational opportunities that I was given so many years ago. So I'd like to know, I know there was a lot there, but how do all 3 of you feel about school choice? And what are you going to do in the future to keep that 100-year-plus tradition in the state alive, if anything?
I'm happy to go because I've been very public since I was elected 12 years ago, which was a lot of my district, a lot of the district that I represent has school choice. I would defend when I ran what they had. I did not think it was equitable throughout the state. I thought it was ripe for a challenge because of that, because it is not available to all students. I would never support universal school choice because markets don't work in rural areas. It leaves rural, poor people behind. That was that until Carson versus Macon. I had a number of public meetings. It's up on my website. For the folks that don't know, that's a decision, a Maine decision that had a similar situation to Vermont, where they allowed some tuition, some students to have choice, no religious school choice, though, just like Vermont. Carson versus Macon said you do not have to offer school choice, but if you do offer school choice, you may not, prohibit a parent from choosing a religious school. That's a hard line for me in terms of public dollars with religious schools.
So
I
you're
think-
saying you support school choice as long as it doesn't include a religious option?
I am saying that I would support what my districts had prior to Carson. Carson said you can't make that distinction. So Carson said you will infringe on other people's religious freedom if you tell them they may not choose a religious school.
So we've been doing that for over 100 years.
That's the courts
Yeah.
saying that. That's a big game changer.
Right.
So I think that we last year took some pretty significant action in terms of what schools qualified. There are now only 18, I believe it is, schools that you can, and I think we have institutions that are critical. One is right here to their region. They provide critical education. So I also think they need to be held to the same standards as public schools. So that's my stance.
Looking for my school of choice notes, but maybe I got too many notes with me. So my answer is, it depends, and which I know isn't a satisfying answer. I think there are situations where school choice makes sense and works for a specific area, and I think that there are other situations where it doesn't. And that's the position that I've taken over the years, because I've come to find out that, I mean, it's not a shocker, but different areas, different towns have different needs across the state compared to each other. And some of my major concerns come from the cost disparity. One of the nice things about Act 73 is that independent schools will have to, their tuition has to be the same as the foundation formula. So a lot of private schools were charging, $5,000 to $10,000 above what the per pupil tuition was. And that was one of the driving factors, one among many, that over the decades has led to increased property taxes across the state. I don't think that we should go to a system where we just cut out completely school choice and it's not an option whatsoever. And the other part is are the standards as well, because private schools operate on different standards for admission. And so there are circumstances where a private school can just deny admission, and whereas public schools can't do that, they have to take everybody. So that's the longer-winded way of saying that it really depends. It depends on the town, district, and the needs of that area, and what has historically happened in that area.
Thank you. Wendy, are you?
Okay, so you're gonna hear similar concerns and supports. I definitely recommend or support the historic academies. I understand their purpose, and they can be amazing schools. The limitation on kids that they accept, we have made progress in that, but not completely, and that has been an issue with Leland and Gray. In the task force, we did see that in some circumstances, having a private school, independent school, tuitioning school nearby, especially in the rural areas, can really hurt the public schools. And I feel that a part of my job is to protect the public schools. That's public schools are essential for democracy. All schools are essential for democracy. And Vermont does have a stellar reputation for our public schools and our private schools. And folks did during COVID move to places that didn't have private schools. there were quite a few families moving in our area. So essentially, similar stance to what Nader and Laura told you, but I think that this is a longer this should be a longer conversation. Your entire community should be part of this conversation, and it's got to be a local decision, but it's a local decision with your fellow towns. I mean, you're a community of towns.
So Laura, I just want to say one other court decision, and you referenced, I think it was you, Dylan, that referenced Act 60 maybe. So Act 60, that Brigham decision, that found that the obligation for ensuring substantially equitable education opportunities for all Vermont students rested at the state level. And so that, we have to keep that in mind. The state prioritized maintaining local control, and Act 60 is a financing mechanism, what we have right now, which tried to ensure, with some limitations, that the state is providing equal dollars for equal tax effort. And that was how they were ensuring it. But there's huge disparities throughout the state. I mean, there are states or schools, with sewer running. And so that pressure is on the state, that they're failing a lot of kids in that regard. So it is a wicked problem. It's not an easy problem.
All right, last point, Chrissy.
I just have one thing, I'm gonna put Senator Harrison on the spot. We did not hear from you as to what you need to hear from us to support us.
Well, let me just say, like what Nader said, similar to that. I want what everybody in the community wants. I have heard from. I have certainly received the letters from you, you plural. But I've also spoken with folks who have a different opinion. But you should certainly be heard, even if I don't exactly agree with what you want to do. I will certainly take your message there to the legislature and make sure that other folks know about what you desire.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, all three of you, for and obviously for the citizens. I've been in corporate life for a long time. This was a level of erudition and respect and ideation that I really just so thrilled. And thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Please don't hesitate to invite me to other select board meetings. This was
watch what you wish for. You're gonna have to listen to Bridge 42 again. Lots of bridges. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and for everybody who came for that conversation, you are welcome to join. We're probably gonna limit a little bit. We're gonna certainly do the mowing bids. I'm sure everybody's dying to know. Karen, yeah.
Can Drew just tell us just a little bit about the session meeting tonight?
You know what? It's a little. Can I ask Drew that you come to the next meeting and?
You can ask.
I'll be in touch.
Yeah. And you know what? To that point, maybe we'll push out some bullet points. Is that okay? Yeah.
I'll put it on, Drew, I'll call you tomorrow.
We're all set on it.
You can put that on the website.
All right. So I'm gonna suggest we skip for this week. Just the update on the sale of the town owned property. Sorry, Karen.
I can talk briefly about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting on you. I mean,
Okay.
I heard the ad, you were gonna get me a script. If you
Oh,
could
the
get that
script, I owe you a
give me
script.
the script and I will.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'm the long pole in the tent on that one.
The thought behind
Okay.
that are that.
And by script, he's saying when calls come in, what can he say?
So we
What's
want
the
to
scope
say
of what he can
people
say?
rather than getting,
Yes,
like,
and I
I'm
apologize.
just
We talked about that last week and I
Are we
apologize.
adjusting the agenda for this evening?
Yes, we were, but we just covered sales.
And what do we added or subtracted?
We've done nothing.
Nothing yet, nothing yet. Yeah, I was gonna skip number 6 and Tom said no.
No.
Yes.
So we should
All right.
have it posted out, hopefully if you get it to me this week, next week.
Yes.
As soon as I have it, I'll
Yeah.
get my contact.
If there's not a whole lot you can say, so it won't take me long,
Okay,
it
great.
fell off my list, so I apologize.
So these sales are going to be happening in the next week or two?
Yeah,
They'll be posted in the next
they'll
week.
be posted in the next week or two.
Right.
And at any time, we can reach out to abutters. We can reach out to abutters to see if there's
That's on the
interest,
list
for
too,
sure.
Karen and I were talking
Yeah.
about that, I was
Yeah.
gonna reach out to them. After
Yeah.
we discovered all the text faults.
Yes.
If I called them, we discovered who owned it previously and how much the tax, the 30,000, or 35,002 tax.
Right.
1935 that wasn't paid, and then the town got it at that point, so, that will be, I'll be contacting it, but.
Perfect. So next we're gonna open the roadside mowing and cemetery mowing bids.
I can handle that. We have received no bids
Yes,
for the roadside mowing.
Not roadside, not roadside, I don't know.
Oh, none for roadside.
Which
Okay, we've
is
been
not
in that
necessarily a
position.
surprise.
Yeah, we've been there before.
We'll look at other
Right.
options there. For the cemetery mowing bids, we've received one bid from Austin Meats,
Austin.
who has done it in the past for several years now. I don't remember how many years. I am not looking at last year's to compare it, but from off the top of my head, it's very much in line, I believe, with what last year was. We put out an RFP for a number of times per cemetery, et cetera, and I also don't have a copy of that, but.
That's all right, what's the,
I don't, it varies per cemetery.
Per cemetery, number of times per cemetery, yeah. But this is very much in line with what it was. I'll make a motion that we accept the bid from Austin Meats to mow all of the town cemeteries.
Dollar amount on that, please?
No. No, that's what I'm saying. Here, I'll read it from the top.
Right.
Pleasant View Cemetery, spring cleanup 125, mowings per time 500, fall cleanup 450. I do not know how many mowings per time there are for that cemetery, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cemeteries that all vary per mowing per number of times.
Is there a total amount though? Because I know what we budgeted.
No.
So
that's gonna be hard to vote on.
So our budget projected an increase over last year, and this actually looks, you know, if it's more, it's within our
like
increase.
$25
Right.
a mowing type of thing. I mean,
Right.
again, don't rely on me, so to speak, but I've opened these before. Tom's going out to get the RFP. We can.
Yeah. Do you wanna table it?
I can table this. We're gonna come up with a full number. It may take 15 minutes. So continue on with the other math. There's a lot of math to do.
So, well, we'll come back to, then we'll come back to number 7. So number 8, do you want to just do an overweight permit? That's great, thank you. We have one overweight permit. So this is from A.S. Clark and Sons, which has, the check has been received. So I will make a motion to approve the application for an overweight permit submitted by A.S. Clark and Sons.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Terrific. All right. The next is our regular order of business to approve. I'll make a motion to approve the timesheets for the staff of the town office, our listers, the highway road crew, and our transfer station.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I'll make a motion to approve the pay orders as issued.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All right, we'll go to public concerns, we can come back to this. So Karen, did you have some things that you want to share?
I'll be fast. Bingo on Fridays at 6 o'clock, Sunday yoga at 9 o'clock at Town Hall, Mondays 5:30 group fitness. Green Up Day is coming this weekend, meeting 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock at the Town Hall for the village.
Bags are available.
People can come in here for bags.
Bags are here,
They're free bags,
Yep.
special Green Up bags.
Great.
And,
Anywhere else in town where they're available? Are there some stores?
I don't know many others.
Usually there used to be,
There's
but-
just
There
here.
used to be,
Yeah.
no?
I haven't done anything. Pat, isn't Pat Nunn's the coordinator of that?
It is, yes.
Come and get them. We got boxes of them.
We
I
have
also know that, there's gonna be a group, in downtown.
Meeting.
From 9 to 12.
Ally.
Around noon?
Yeah,
Right.
Ally Bennings is running that,
At
so
9.
come around noon. At what
9
time?
and noon?
9 to 12.
9 to
Oh,
12,
9 to
in the
12.
village, picking things up, cleaning up the sidewalks and things too, so that's something that's out there.
And there'll be bags available.
And they'll be back, she picked up a bunch of bags from us.
And then the bags go up to the transfer station, they get counted into the number for the state, how many bags came in. And getting the village ready for Mayfest, which is Saturday, May 16th. You can get online, I'll post it again on the Jamaica page to order plants for a pollinator garden. $50 for like 9 plants or something like that, it's a really good deal. This Saturday is whitewater release. There's a spaghetti supper at the Jamaica Community Church from 4:30 to 7. And Sunday was our very successful 3rd Kids Music Hour at the Town Hall. So that's all I've got for the moment.
So what's the community supper, I'm sorry, what's that, what time?
4:30 to 7
It's at the church, right?
at the church.
I have something to talk about.
Okay, please.
If you'll note the box over there, there's half a box of yellow bags left, so, we will start using the yellow tokens probably in early May, as soon as those bags are gone. There's FAQ located at the library, there's a whole, you can pick one up, take it home with you, just answering a bunch of questions about the changes to the dump, which basically, or the transfer station, which basically are very minimal. We're just switching from the bags to the coins. We're gonna start with the yellows, because the yellows are gone. We do have a large amount of 45 boxes or so of greens left. We should talk about that at some point if we want to discount those, but that's not happening yet. But so we'll still be selling the green bags. I'm going to the stores tomorrow in Rossonville and West River Provisions to talk to them about the coin system, the token system, and get them up to speed. So you'll be seeing those boys shortly once these bags are gone, which will be probably be within a week or 2.
So,
yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
but it won't be-
Going back to a token system? Wasn't it like coins beforehand? Jamaican dollars?
The coins for the trash, I'm sorry, construction waste and
Construction
mattress
waste
stuff,
has always
those
been.
tokens will still exist,
Right.
it's a different system, so there'll be green, I talked to you. There's green and yellow tokens to replace the bags, but the other token system will remain the same, and all that's on the FAQ. It explains what's changing, what's not, what you need to do as far as the waste, putting it in a receptacle or bags or boxes or something like that. That's all on there. I hope. And if not, please give me a call and I'll talk to you about it at the town office.
Anything else from the, yes, please.
Mike Pisbato, I'm here because of something that we kind of talked about last fall, which is mainly the safety of cars and the environmental impact of Pikes Falls. And I think we left off last time that you were gonna have like the sheriff kind of patrolling it and having the cars not be completely taking up half of the road, creating it into like a one-way kind of stag, and it's with kids running around, and so I don't know where that kind of got left off, or.
Yes, now that's excellent because we are now coming into warmer weather, so so you're anticipating the level of activity. Oh, are you already feeling it?
I already filled the trash bag of trash in the last month, just going down there the other day.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like, when are we gonna acknowledge the hundreds of people that are there on a Saturday in June, July, and kind of like affecting that small, beautiful piece of like nature? And then also like keep bringing up the safety of people. It's a 35-mile-per-hour road, and people are coming around that bend, and you have upwards of 30 to 40 cars parked there. And there's been multiple times where I've been head on with a car, and we're forced to now, one of us go in reverse for upwards of 20 car lengths just to figure out, because you can't get around because the cars are taking up half of the road. So.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we did talk to the sheriff last year. We kind of had that conversation, as I recall, later in the summer.
It was in the fall, yeah.
Right,
It was right around the
early
sale.
fall.
It was the sale out of the property next to it. That kind of
Right. Well, we have, who's got the rules? You have the rules.
I have the rules.
Okay. So, Robert's one of our new members. Robert has taken over the role that Andy Coyne had, which was liaison to the sheriff's office. So it is something that Mark Anderson is well aware of, but I think it's probably maybe I mean, honestly, are you familiar with that area? And
Very familiar,
Okay.
and I'd love to go down and talk to Mark about it.
yes,
So,
thank you for
And if
raising
something
it.
doesn't happen into like the sheriff's kind of what route?
No,
What's
it
the
doesn't.
next route, which is like potentially limiting parking in that area, kind of similar to Hamilton Falls or?
So what we did is, so it's, what people are doing is actually already illegal. You know, they're parking in the roadway, right?
That's the main.
One of the things that we had talked about, because now some of the area is paved, is actually to do, is to have the road crew to paint the line, to paint the, you know, the roadway edge. That's really, I mean, unless you see that you're actually in the roadway, people just, they ignore it, The other thing we had also considered is putting up the signs, because the parking, our traffic and parking ordinance actually already does have
Correct.
zoning, you know, has a zone set up there. So probably we should, you know, meet with Keith. In fact, I think the signs are already
I'll go up
here.
there, I'm the road commissioner, so
Right.
I will go up there tomorrow
Right.
and take a peek, I just wanna look around, I haven't been up there since.
There's like from where the Gibson properties start to where the town of Jamaica is, and then there's that other property that's been for sale, that
Set
guy,
for
the
ages.
renegade property guy, whatever.
Yeah, that
There's like
that
a
was
length
subject
that
to
has a
250.
great amount of space for cars to pull over on the side.
There's only supposed to be 5 cars, and we used to have a sheriff up there.
I mean, I feel like we
Right.
could fit like 10 in my opinion, but that's.
No. I think you're thinking of Windham, right, where,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but there's, we actually did limit it to 5 cars at,
I was thinking Hamilton spots.
Hamilton Falls, thank you.
That's
Yeah.
controlled by the,
Yeah.
that's controlled by the state.
Okay.
Right,
Like Robin and Glenn Gibson have gone out last year, they measured it, because they're
Right.
next door neighbors to it. And you could probably fit about 10-ish
Right.
cars there, just putting signage on each end saying you could only park in between
in
these
between
two
these
signs.
two.
That I also
And
think.
even that, you have to be outside of the roadway.
Correct, and that puts you, that small area will put you off the roadway. Anything
Right.
beyond that, you are clearly in the roadway. I also think that'll help the environmental impact of the
Let
place.
me go
like-
up and take a look at it, and maybe I can keep to go up with you tomorrow.
Yeah, in terms of trash, I mean, honestly, like it's terrible. I mean, the way they behave, you know, people were driving by and throwing stuff out of their car. I mean, the stories were terrible. I
I think
mean,
limiting the amount of cars on the road there will
It should
have
help.
a big
It should
impact
help.
on
but
the
I
traffic
do
that's
think we
there.
need to think about how we can.
Speaking of roads, Tom, I want to thank you because
Tom?
Not me.
Tom?
there were such horrible holes in our street. And I have a bad back and every time. And I called Tom the other day and within a couple of hours, they were completely
And I will take no credit for that, I will credit the road, because they were heading up there anyway. I say Keith and his group were great,
So
they were up there. I will take credit.
there's one other thing, that road, I wish there was a speeding sign 5 or 10 miles an hour, because all of a sudden, this summer, there are kids who live at the end of the road or their friends, and they have these huge, nasty trucks flying up and down at night. Pickup trucks.
But we can't unilaterally change the speed limit, but are they in
I don't think there's
excess?
any speed limit there right now.
Every road has a speed limit.
Well,
Yeah.
mine does, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
25 probably.
It's 30, I think it's
Oh, it's
30.
probably 25.
It's 35.
Okay, I see a sign, but once you go past the state park, then they're like.
Water Street's 20,
big
are you
trucks
sure?
Flying up and
25.
down the road.
Radar.
And it's
Yeah.
like, there's only 3 houses in the.
Right,
in
I mean,
the
that's
place.
something to, that's enforcement, and so, yeah.
The sheriff we could make a good bit of money for the town.
Karen, yeah.
I have 2 things. Michael, we're looking for someone to do water testing at Pikes Falls this summer. I don't know if you or anybody else up there is maybe interested in doing it. It's I think it was every other Wednesday morning. There's about 6 or 7 times.
That's something I should be interested in doing.
Okay, I'll be in touch with you. And the other thing, we had talked about signage at the first bridge on Pikes Falls Road
Yeah.
and warnings. Do you know where we're at with that?
I don't. I think, yeah.
We talked about talking about it, we
Right.
talked about Greg and I have, and Keith, but no one's done, there's nothing to do.
Right, we haven't made movement, but.
And there's
to be
been a
perfect, yeah.
lot of accidents there
Yeah, yeah.
going
On
on,
that
and one
corner.
of these days there'll be a fatality from
Right.
it, you know, going off.
There's
Certainly, cars have died.
Yes, they certainly
And I
have.
know we've talked to Keith about getting some signs, but I think a lot of people are expecting there's gonna be a flashing yellow
Yes.
light there or something, that's probably not gonna happen.
Right.
Well, at least 2 or 3 warning signs,
Right.
something needs to be there.
There are 2, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we,
I think on
Would
our
you
road,
like a stop
one of these trucks will go into water.
We can't unilaterally put a stop sign there.
Jamaica.
Yeah, no, that is, unfortunately, it's regulated.
It's like
What we-
class 2 road. I
Yeah.
think, just
Yeah,
throw a stop sign.
yeah.
But anyways, you know, I
You have
think
to do,
we'll
in
look
order
at
to
the
do
signs,
it,
yeah.
just by the way, you're an engineer, so you know what I'm gonna say, you have to do a study.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Picture of the guardrail, that's your study.
well, I wish that qualified as a study, speed, the whole, classic engineer.
Yeah.
So, anything else? All right, I will make a motion
Wait,
to, oh,
He's got a number for us.
Oh, the number.
oh, you
I
have
have a
the
number,
number.
but I missed
Thank
it.
you, I forgot.
I'm still missing some number. Included in here was the bid for the ball field. I don't know how many times that was supposed to be, that's not in the RFP.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't.
So we can accept just the cemeteries, or we can accept the ball field, but I don't know how many times the ball field is supposed to be. It's not in the RFP.
Yeah, it didn't need to be in the RFP, actually. He's done it before as an add-on.
So we can
because
do it as a
it's so
separate-
little, it's such little money, so
But
I would
I-
just not include it for the total for
Okay.
this conversation.
So the
Yeah.
total for here, and I don't know what the budget is, but the total for the mowing of the 7 different cemeteries, he's also said that he would do the,
Oh, the Robins?
It's on there.
Oh,
is that the one that's that 7th day
This one.
at 7? Okay, he said he would do the 7th day Adventist, which is up by Fox Falls also, that's the one in the back, right?
That's
Robin's
done
down there.
privately by the church itself.
Okay, well, he said he would volunteer, so maybe he should talk to the church.
yeah.
Okay,
I do not know, the Robin Cemetery,
is the one in East Jamaica that we just took on this year.
Did
he's,
he not include it?
he did not include it. He has the regular East Jamaica, but not the Robin
You
Cemetery.
don't need to.
Okay.
He's also in here though, said he would do 6 additional hours for $420.
Okay.
This
So
says a
after-
fall and spring cleanup only, so that's probably gonna be, so
Right,
it's a
so
whole lot of
that's what
apples
it
and
is.
oranges and
Right.
grapes and everything,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Roughly,
So with all those kind of caveats, the total is $11,515.
I think weren't we like 12?
Pretty close to it.
Right.
For the
No, I think we
budget.
budgeted 12. I wanna say we budgeted 12 or 12.50.
But
More? Oh, maybe we did. Okay, all right. So,
I will make a motion to accept the bid from Austin Meats for $11,515 to mow the 7 cemeteries as detailed in the RFP.
I was second that, but I know the amount.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, I will make a motion to adjourn.
We're done.
Second. Oh, are we gonna go into executive
No, we're
session?
not.
Not
We
yet.
want to, but I don't think we, remember we talked about that?
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, okay. I know it was a footnote.
It was a
If we're not
footnote.
doing it, then.
No. Right, you actually, Tom before the meeting was like this. Yes, and it was seconded by Jason. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.